Ariano. I am a youth mentor with the Lab Learning Action Buffet and a member of the Lab's Radio Hour. Thank you, Micaela De La Rosa, for agreeing to be interviewed today as part of our Youth Voice Matters project in partnership with Generation Justice in Albuquerque. The main purpose of this project is to elevate youth voices in southern New Mexico at this critical moment in history. As you know, we're in the middle of a pandemic and an uprising calling out and calling for anti-racism in the United States. We'd like to hear from you in terms of how you're dealing with all this, like your thoughts, hopes, insights, and recommendations for the future. So thank you. How are you doing?
First off, thank you so much for having me on.
You're welcome.
This is super exciting. So I'm from Las Cruces. I love it. Love it a lot. I grew up here and I went to high school and I went to NMSU. And right now I'm actually getting my master's at the University of Arizona.
Nice.
So I'm doing grad school out there. Yeah, I have two little sisters. Okay, this is super duper boring, but since school has been like my thing for a while, it's right, like it sucks out your brain, body, and soul. So that's been most of my time is just kind of school. But I love cooking and baking and kind of lovingly force feeding people. So like that person that I will make food and be like, here, take some home. Like you have to take them home. And it's so that's me. I'm super into murder mysteries.
Okay.
It's just a little weird, but like in books or in shows or whatever, it's like so interesting to kind of watch people unravel these stories and these puzzles. And so I'm a big murder mystery fan.
Nice. And actually, that's a pretty that's a good nice little segue piece, because in terms of that, how everything around us is kind of a mystery right now with the pandemic and things like that. How are you doing in terms of that? So you mentioned you go to school at the University of Arizona. Are you out there right now? Where are you? What's your deal on that? What's the atmosphere like?
Yeah, so it's been kind of interesting. So the University of Arizona went fully online at the end of the spring semester, right? So when all of this started, they went fully online. And so I came home to Cruces to kind of, spend time with family and look after my parents and just kind of, right? When the world is this crazy, you kind of got to prioritize, right? And so I wanted to spend time with family. And so for me, school is still online. And so I am still mostly in Las Cruces, and I'll go back for stuff that I need to do over there. But it's been,
and safely, of course, right? Masks and all that good stuff.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah, definitely.
Yes.
And
that's right, youth. Keep wearing the masks.
Yeah. Yes. It's been, I've been really glad that the University of Arizona has actually been super safe about it.
Mm-hmm.
So they've been able to do a bunch of tests for students, and they've had mask mandates forever and ever. Yeah. So it's been cool that there are some organizations that are kind of being really careful and succeeding. And so they've been able to keep their numbers low, which is nice. So then it's not, so dangerous going and then coming back.
It's cool. It happens when you actually listen, right?
Yeah.
But anyway, you get what I mean. But so, I'm moving forward. Yeah. So, but aside from school and stuff like that, has there how else has the pandemic and things like that? How's that has that affected you in any sort of way, personally, or is it just hey, school, we're safe, boom, boom,
Yeah, no, definitely. So my family's been really fortunate.
Mm-hmm.
No one in my immediate family has been laid off. So we've been really lucky with that. All my work went online.
Nice.
Not only school, but also work. And so we've been lucky, but we've definitely been really worried because we have a lot of people that are in my family that are in that higher risk category, right? Because of age or because of pre-existing conditions, lung respiratory stuff or diabetes. And so, it's been scary. It's been scary, knowing that if some of my family members were to get sick, there's a good chance that they would have a really, really rough time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so it's definitely been something that's like weighed really heavy on our hearts for a while, you know, and like, and you can tell that like after this many months of like living in this kind of like limbo in between state where it's like really stressful, like you can, yeah, like it wears on the spirit. Yeah, but you know, it is what it is, right?
No, yeah, and like, no, I hear that, and like, so I like, yeah, and moving forward with even like concerning that, like, what are your? I know like it seems rough right now, but like, what are your hopes for the future? You know, like upcoming, because you know, like there are like, you know, the good silver linings amongst all of it. Like we have our worries, but you know, like, you know what I mean. But yeah. Like, what do you see? Like, what do you hope for?
You mentioned earlier when we were talking something about like the conversations about race and racism that we've been having in this country,
yes,
right?
Yeah.
All of the demonstrations, and because of all of these really ugly things that have been happening that are finally coming to light, right? So like issues around police brutality, issues around institutional racism, and all of that. I'm actually really hopeful that this sort of painful growing process that the country's been going through is going to have positive results, right? Because if you can't deal with an issue if you're not willing to acknowledge that it's an issue. And I think we have finally, the general US is being forced to recognize that this is a problem, right? And like we've had communities that have been suffering with this and through this for a long time. And so now that we're finally able to really, like, the country's eyes have been opened, right? Like a lot of us have known that this was going on, but like the country's eyes have finally been opened. And so
now everybody knows what's going on, in a sense. It's a lot more, everyone's more aware. You're like, oh, okay.
And so with that, I think my hope is that we can, now that we've had this moment of eye-opening, right, that we can use this to really move forward and to address, to like help each other, help the communities that are struggling and the communities that are having a hard time, and really try to meet some of those needs, right? Because I think on both sides, on all sides, where there is need, there's going to be hurt. And that's something that is not only painful for like the people who are going through it, but it contributes to this division and this hate and this, right, like all of that we're seeing in the political situation today. So if we can really try to address some of those needs in these different communities, I think that there's a lot of potential for us to move forward and for us to kind of make things better and really like improve people's quality of life, you know? Yeah. So I'm hopeful. In the middle of all this craziness.
It's good to be hopeful.
Yeah.
And you know, you're right. I hadn't asked the question yet. What are your thoughts on, you know, racism and all the things going on concerning that and this change in our country?
For those of us who either are people of color or are kind of like have lived some of that, right? It can be a little bit too much to sit in that all the time and just like be bombarded if it's something that you've lived through, right? Like I don't know if this is coming out okay, like it's probably not making a ton of sense, but it was like it was overwhelming. It was overwhelming because those are things that I have experienced. Those are things that my family and my community have experienced.
And now suddenly, oh, hey, and you're like,
yes, and you're like, oh boy, yeah, okay. Definitely.
I hear that. Yeah, there's a lot of like both sides of the story kind of thing going on, because you're like, hey, like when that happened in one instance, something didn't happen, but now it's occurring. But like it's good, like it's good, like that progress is happening. But, you know, I understand, like it's like, whoa, it's all like at once.
Yes.
Surprising.
Well, when you let me know that we were going to be talking and kind of what we were going to be talking about, I was thinking about it, and I realized that both the pandemic and these race conversations and this movement, that these difficult situations have both kind of really peeled back the curtain in this country.
Mm-hmm.
And so these things have shown us a lot of good things, right? So like they've tested us in a way. And so, like, for example, I have a friend that lives up in Minneapolis, and so she's been really, really vocal on social media and like showing the way that the community was healing after what they went through, right? Mm-hmm. And just the way that people were coming together and like turning what had been a really painful situation with the demonstrations in that city into mm-hmm. something that was like a growing opportunity. Mm-hmm. And so that was super positive. And like with this election that we're smack dab in the middle of, like somebody said that we're having the highest voter turnout since like.
Yeah. Oh no, it's the highest voter. It's the highest ever.
Okay, there we go.
Yeah, it's the highest ever. Yeah, it's already the highest ever.
Whoa. Okay.
Yeah. No. Yeah. It's already confirmed.
Good. That is so good. That
we just have to also be aware that all the numbers, like there was problems before, there are going to be problems. Mm-hmm. It's mm-hmm. a lot more. So we can't be upset about that too much. I don't think. Like just to put that out there. Yeah. That's something.
Yeah.
Something to like consider, because like you're like, oh like it's great, but you still remember like how like